traditional symbol of the Netherlands, of Holland, the Dutch Republic, was a ship, and the ship in the Jewish symbolism, in Jewish tradition, as found in Midrashim, was a symbol of Zebulon. So that is a point worth noting. In addition to that, it says in the Hebrew, in the translation of the Hebrew, in Genesis 49:13, Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for a haven of ships, and his border shall be on Sidon. Okay, Sidon was a Phoenician city on the coast of Lebanon, was now Lebanon. It still exists. And the Zebulon may, in many biblical book maps, you won't showing the tribal allocations within the land of Israel. You won't see him exactly getting up to the north, getting up into that region, but some of them do show it that way. At all events, these prophecies were for the future. Jacob, when he gave the prophecies, he said, I will tell you what will happen in the end times. And in the end times, we find Zebulon to be in the Netherlands. We also found people from Phoenicia, from the cities of Tyre and Sidon and other Phoenician areas in Germany. And that whole region has names of cities and places similar to those of Sidon. So apparently that was an area where people from Sidon settled in Germany, in the areas of Germany adjoining the Netherlands. So in this way, the prophecy has been fulfilled. Now, as it says that Zebulun will dwell on the shores of the sea. Zebulun shall dwell on the shores of the sea, and now Zebulun, that is the Netherlands, between 50 to 2/3 of the population dwell on reclaimed sea land. Originally, the area was made up of swamps or swamp-type land bordering the sea, little islands where people farmed in, with the sea all around. And this was somewhat dangerous because sometimes it flooded and sometimes it wasn't reliable. So over the centuries, they made dams linking the different areas and drained the sea out. And gradually they built up the whole country. And they're still doing that. That's why you have all those windmills. Pictures of Holland, you see windmills all over the place. Because the windows work to pump out the water. And that is what they do. They make dams, dikes, and shut the water in or shut the water out, and they drain the excess water out, and then build up the land and farm on it. That is also why tulips are still very popular, associated with Holland, because the tulip is a type of flower that grows in soil which is very sandy, such as you find in Holland. Also says, Israel shall dwell on the shores of the sea, so that's what the people of the Netherlands do. And if you're building, you're doing gardening or something, you normally go outside digging the garden, or you want to build a little something on the land that you have. So you dig down a little bit, you come to subsoil. So where the people in Holland dwell, or most of them dwell, that is over more than 40% of the whole total area in Holland, you don't get subsoil, you get sea sand. Literally, they dwell on the shores of the sea. They're the only country in the world that did it. Also in the maps of Ptolemy, we find in an area to the north, somewhat to the north of present-day Netherlands, but close by adjoining it, where a lot of people came in to the Netherlands from, known as Zebulon Goy. Zebulun go with an S, Zebulun go with an S because they didn't use a Z. They lost the use of the Z, so they called themselves Zebulun. Zebulun means Zebulon. And Goy in Hebrew means people. So the people of Zebulon, that was the name they had. And they were in that relevant area at the relevant time. As recorded by Ptolemy, who wasn't Christian, he wasn't Jewish, he wasn't influenced by Jewish sources. That was the name of the people that were there, and he recorded it. So that too is of interest. Also, we have legends, Christian legends and other legends of the ancestors of the people of the Netherlands having come from Jerusalem. That is, having come from Jerusalem before the time of Nebuchadnezzar, in other words, belonging to Israel from the lost 10 tribes. So this too ties in with the historical records that we have found of different peoples moving into the area and settling there.
Here we have two places in Michigan where there are a lot of Dutch people who have settled. One is Zeeland and another is Zilwaukee. I wonder if they got their Z from Zebulun.
I find that the Dutch people are among the most kind people on earth, the kindest people on earth.
Yeah, very nice people.
And the
have lots of faith.
The clans of Zebulon were Syria, Sadi, Elon, Hadid, and Yachliel. So Syria, we find Syria amongst the Suadoni and Suareni of peoples who settled in Holland. Also Elon gave his name to Holland. Hadid, and we have Yachliel, who also settled in Holland, known as a Hali. So that is what we have concerning Zebulon.
Who are the people of Friesland?
The people of Friesland. So that is an interesting point. Friesland, Bert Otten is a person who lives in the Netherlands. He's a Christian minister. I corresponded with him, and he also has done work on the 10 tribes and lost 10 tribes. He's just put up a website of his own with articles on it. He also, some of his articles in the past he sent us, and we put them up on our website. And some of his identifications agree with ours. Some of them do not. Some of them do not, but and we've just written an article about that and put it up on one of our websites concerning this, comparing his identifications with the owners. And at all events, as I said, he mentions that the Dutch are from Zebulon, as we say. Incidentally, the point we made about tulips, we got that from him. When we get information from others, we try and mention the source, but we don't. It doesn't always come out that way. So anyway, here's the source for the recording the tulips, because tulips really were very important in the history of Holland. They'd competitions, and they invested in tulips, and it was very, very important. So tulips owe their presence to having sandy soil on Holland. At all events, Bert Otten, he mentions the Frisians. The Frisians are people to the north of the Netherlands, the north of Holland, and they also are to be found in Germany, in the adjoining areas of Germany, reaching up to Denmark and further. And there are those who claim that not all of them are of the same race, not all of them are the same people, that those in Germany are a different group. But Otten takes the opinion that they're all the same, they're all one people. And he also identifies them with Issachar. In other words, he says that in the Bible, you have Issachar and Zebulun being together. So here too, you have Issachar and Zebulun being together. And Issachar was compared to a donkey. And the people of Phoenicians are stubborn like a donkey, and they're hard work, and they're organized, and so on. And he says they are tributes of Issachar. So we don't accept that, but that's a point that he makes. We identify the Frisians as being remnants of the Pharisee. The Pharisee were a group from Manasseh. They're mentioned in the Book of Chronicles. The Book of Chronicles concerning Manasseh mentions the Shareshi and the Phareshi and others, the sense of Makkah from Manasseh, and we identify them with groups who settled in Germany. As the 10 tribes came to the west, a lot of them settled in Germany. Settled all over Germany, but especially the north and the western areas, and they were descended from Israelites. And they often settled in their own villages. They kept separate from the others to some degree. And then in the 1700s and 1800s, they migrated. They all picked themselves up and moved out. They had one village of Germans full of people that stayed where they were, and beside them another village that was emptied altogether. Certain groups of people, certain types decided they didn't want to stay where they were, and they wanted to get out, so they did this what they did. It was a mass movement. And we have identified them, and they were different from the Germans who stayed behind. Both in there, they were less anti-Semitic, less anti-Jewish on the whole, and they had different political and social concepts. And they felt oppressed in Germany. They wanted to move out of Germany, and that's what they did in the 1700s and 1800s. So most of them went to the USA. So they were in effect Israelites getting out of there. The name of the Frisians comes from the Pharisee, who were a portion of these people from Manasseh moving away, moving out of the area. That is how we understand who the Frisians were. It's also recorded that Frisians participated in the invasion of England, and the Angles and the Saxons and the Jutes invaded England. Frisians, according to Procopius, a contemporary historian from Byzantium, who wrote about it, and he mentions Frisians being very prominent in the invaders of England. So, anyone anything to add?
Yes, I have another question. That Christian minister in Friesland, in what city is he residing?
Gouda, the province of Gouda near Amsterdam.
Oh, yeah, well, Gouda cheese. Yeah, right. But that's in the south. That's more south than in the north of Friesland.
Okay, anyway. No, but he's writing about the whole country.
What was that?
He might be living in the south, but he's writing about the whole country. He's writing about all the whole 10 tribes.
Okay.
He has articles concerning identifying all of the tribes, and just put them up on the website of his.
Okay.
And his insights and observations and information that we found of value, even though on many issues we disagree with him, and he disagrees with us.
Well, the Dutch are very pro-Israel, at least when I was there. They're very Jewish. I feel that.
True. The Dutch were on the whole pro-Israel, pro-Jewish.
Yeah.
And help the Jews, especially amongst the Dutch. You had the Calvinists in the north, actually amongst the Frisians possibly, who were very, very active in helping save Jews, much more than the others, relatively speaking. It's something that's just worthy of mention. Even though all the Dutch people were, on the whole, favourable, Holland was a problem. because there's nowhere to hide. 80% of the Jews, or more than 80% of the Jews in Holland, were taken away by the Nazis and killed, because there was a problem to hide Jews, and also they had the records. The Dutch were very punctilious. They wrote down the address and the religion of everyone, where they were. The Nazis just came in and took over this information, and they were able to hunt down the Jews quite easily. So, and also you had people in Holland who were pro-German, who were people who joined the Nazis, who fought for the Nazis, were enlisted in the Waffen SS, and that is also a phenomenon that existed. Even though towards the end the Germans almost starved the Dutch to death. The Germans, in World War I, the Germans had a problem that they didn't have enough food, and the people in the cities, German cities, were fainting in the streets because they were hungry. Plus the soldiers at the front had food, but because the people in the homes didn't have enough, the Germans felt they had to surrender. So the Nazis, when they came to power, they decided that wouldn't happen again. So they made a point of getting all their food from the countries that they conquered. The Nazis would come in, conquer a country, and first of all, they'd take all the food away from the people, or leave it with the people just enough to keep alive and take all the food to Germany. And the more they lost, the more land they lost, the less captured areas were they able to take food from. In the end, they had hardly any land left except Holland. So they took away all the food from the Dutch. And so there was a famine in Holland. And meanwhile, the Allies had not conquered the area. So there's a famine in Holland. People were dying of starvation. And in the end, just before they conquered all the area, the Allies managed to get in contact with the Germans, and the Germans allowed them to fly in food supplies for the local population. But that is something the Dutch experienced. And if you're in that situation, it's hard to hide other people. You're dying of starvation. Your children and everyone else around you are starving to death. You're not going to want to take in strangers and hide them and have to feed them and so on. So that is also that is reality.
Well, Holland is the second largest agricultural producer now in the world, and the government is destroying the farmer. I think that it's time for the lost tribes in Holland to get out. It's past time. And same with England. You know, this is the strength of those two countries, and those countries are very influential, have been very influential on the world situation. You know, my heart cries for those people. Yeah,
you're right. The Dutch are very good.
Where could they go? They can't go to Israel because the Jews won't let them in.
well, God's going to shake
Syria.
up Israel.
Syria is underpopulated. A whole lot of millions of people ran out of Syria. In Syria, you don't hardly hear about it in the news. In Syria is dominated by the Alawis. The Alawis comprise 10 to 12% of the population of Syria. They originally worshipped the moon. After that, they became Muslims about not that long ago, about 50 years ago, but they still basically maintain their pagan religion, at least to some degree. And the rest of the Syrians hate them, and they're always oppressed. And somehow or other, when the French controlled the area, they used the Alawis to rule over the others, because the Alawis were knew the culture and you spoke the language. It was much easier. And so they took control of the country. And the Assad family, the rulers of Syria, are from the Alawi minority. And recently they had a civil war in the country. And the Russians backed, and the Alawis control the armed forces, they control the air force, they control the police, they control everything. And the Alawis, with the help of Russians, started killing all the others. So millions of them fled. They went to Germany. Germany actually wants them because the Germans are not having babies. And they need people to do the work. The Syrians are strong and eager workers. And other parts of Europe as well. So Syria actually is underpopulated. So something could happen that could take over Syria. And people from lost jobs could come in there. Parts of Syria were parts of the land of Israel in ancient times. That is part of the promised land.
Well, certainly if there's a war with Iran, Damascus could be nuked. And then some of the lost tribes could come into that area, right up to the Litani in Lebanon as well.
Yes. Also, you have the point. Actually, Holland, the Netherlands, has only a small population, about by European standards, about 20 million people. I don't know, not a great number of people, but it pulls its weight. It's very progressive. It is very scientifically advanced. As you said, they have agricultural innovations. Also in computers, they chips. They produce all the chips in the world for all the computers in the world, or most of them. China tried to imitate them and didn't succeed. So that's the point. Most of the chips you use in your computers, they come from the Netherlands, and the manner of producing it has not been replicated. So there's a strong point that they have. It's not widely known, but you can look it up on the internet, and you'll see comments about it. You see remarks on the issue. And also, John just brought up a point. We have the state of Israel. State of Israel is how many? Not that many. Maybe 14 million Jews here. Less. 8 million Jews. 8 million Jews. A few million Arabs. And the state of Israel is surrounded by enemies, and you have all these crazy people, Muslim fanatics, wanting to destroy the state of Israel in Iran. And everywhere we have stable Islamic governments, they want to destroy the state of Israel. Even Turkey several times threatened war with Israel because it's also a Muslim country. They also hate the Jews. And Israel, at some stage or other, in order to survive, may have to fight them all. And it might be capable of doing so, but it can't control them, it can't police them. Israel needs the 10 tribes.
That's right.
Israel needs the 10 tribes to use them, to help them resist their enemies, to settle areas, to police regions, to colonize the greater land of Israel in order to keep alive. Israel needs this.
What is holding them back from welcoming us to come there?
Pardon?
What keeps them from opening the doors to us? They allow a lot of other groups. They allow Arabs. They allow other people from Africa and India, but
Okay, so first of all, they're not as enlightened as we are. Haven't consulted with us, unfortunately, and we haven't been able to tell them, or neither has anyone else. And they might have such an idea in the back of their head, but I doubt it. But it's a possibility. You never know how things can turn out. Sometimes things happen very quickly.
Well, it's not politically correct, probably.
I've been putting it to the Soviet Union. You had the Soviet Union. You had the Iron Curtain. You had communism all over Europe, all over Eastern Europe. It was threatening the peace of the world. It was a power, a mighty power. And if someone had told you that in 1 or 2 years, they're just going to say, we don't want any more, we're tired of communism, come in and take us over, do us a favor. Yeah, you would have thought he was hallucinating. But that is virtually what happened.
And the New World Order.
They changed their colors.
That's right. The New World Order wants to get us all together so they can kill us.
Somehow or other it happened. So too, concerning the 10 tribes, things can happen. May happen very quickly. Even though to us it seems impossible or highly